Welcome to Lynnwood Election Watch 2015. I'm your host, Teresa Wippel. In the studio, we have Ben Goodwin, who is running for Lynnwood City Council Position 5. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to see you.
It's even better to be here.
So we'd like to start out by having you talk a little bit about yourself and that you're running for your second term, my understanding, and why are you running for re-election, and talk a little bit about your history in Lynnwood and all of that.
Okay. For me, I was born in Oregon, moved to Washington when I was 14, and I've been in this area since that time. I've been in Lynnwood for 11 years, and my wife and I are raising 3 children in Lynnwood now. That's really the foundation of why I decided to run. I want to make sure that families have a place in Lynnwood all the time. And so as long as I'm in the council, that's what I'm going to strive to do. It's really my ultimate goal, I think, is to make sure that Lynnwood is a safe, friendly community. Part of our community vision is to have a safe and welcoming community that's diverse and allows people to be themselves and to be safe doing it. So.
Okay. And you had said that you work at the Costco corporate headquarters, right?
Correct.
In Issaquah.
Yeah, I'm a trainer and develop training for Costco on their modernizing efforts. So, we're modernizing a lot of systems that we've been using for the last 30 years and feel it's time to upgrade. So I learn the systems and develop training and train whoever needs to be trained on them, from employees to executives to whoever else. So.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll start with the first question, and this is related to an issue that the council's been discussing recently. The city and Snohomish County Fire District 1 have been talking about discussing possible regional fire consolidation, and wondering if you have a position on the idea at this time, or if there are factors you're looking at before you'd make that kind of a decision.
There are definitely factors that I'm looking at. I had the opportunity to sit in on the last talks when we were discussing with Fire District 1 about...
And that was a bunch of cities that did that,
yeah. It was
9 or something
like
that.
Most of the south end.
Right.
That didn't already have a contract with Fire District 1. And I think the biggest things for me, and I've heard from a number of citizens, we want our levels of service to stay the same or be better. If they're better, that's great, and we can do that. And the same thing with taxes. To have really what the problem would be is if we went to a separate fire district, Lynnwood would still collect taxes because we'd still owe stuff to the fire district, and then the fire district would also be able to put a property tax or some kind of a levy out, which would of course raise taxes for most single-family homes, and then those that live in apartments in those buildings, their rent would likely go up because of that, and so it would increase the amount that they have to pay out of pocket. So if we can do it without increasing our cost and with the same levels of service, I think we'd be more than willing to do that. At least I would. And I think, the firefighters themselves have mentioned that they like the idea because it's good for them. It gives them security, job security. Generally, in the fire district, the salaries that they make are a little higher, so that would be good for them as well. And if that pans out, then I don't think we'd have a problem doing that. We try as hard as we can to keep the fire department in Lynnwood because it's ours. It's our fire department.
Yeah.
And, we're getting into situations where if we don't do something, it's going to be very difficult for us to keep the fire department the way that it is. With the city's finances, especially in the last 5 to 7 years with the recession and things like that, have made that very difficult. And so we're trying to do what we can so that, we never want to have to lay people off. We don't want to have to do that kind of stuff. So, all those options are things that we're looking at to make sure that we can keep our levels of service for our citizens the way that they are, or better.
And the city is facing a lot of growth, which means that there will be more needs for fire services. So I'm sure that's a factor as well, right?
It's a huge factor. One of the things that comes up often is annexation, and that would be another part. If we were to annex, if we were able to do that, would our fire department be able to fill the needs? And if not, if we contract with Fire District 1, how would that work out for our citizens and be best for the city. So there are a lot of things that we have to look at and really discuss. And I think that's why I'm open to having discussions with Fire District 1. I think it's a good idea to at least discuss, because for me, discussion doesn't hurt anything. It allows us to get more information to make a sound decision. So.
Okay, good. Let's shift to the discussion of the recent council vote on banning marijuana operations in the city. One of the points that was discussed was, that the state is not doing any revenue sharing right now with cities, and there are increased costs that are anticipated if those operations come in. If that revenue sharing did come about, is it something that you think the council or you personally would be willing to revisit down the road?
I think we'd be willing to revisit it, definitely. There's always concerns with what establishments that are adult-oriented, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, things like that, what kind of effect they have on the community itself, especially children. And I think the state has put some good things in place to prevent negative side effects. It has to be 1,000 feet from schools and different things like that. And in the city, we've added places of worship to that. So we're trying to make it as business friendly for them, but also as community oriented as we can. One of the concerns that I have is the way that things are now. If we were to allow marijuana business, it brings nothing to the community. There's really no benefit to our citizens. And to me, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Our citizens deserve to have things come into the city that will benefit them and help them. And currently, that's not the case. And if the state, depending on what it is they decide to share and how they decide to do that could also play a factor in us revisiting that situation and having those discussions again.
Okay, good. Let's talk a little bit about the wearing your hat as a council member and a member of the Transportation Benefit District, and the discussion that's been going on about the possible transportation measure that could include raising sales tax and reducing the vehicle tab fee. Are you at a point where you have a position on that, and what might be the best direction for the city to go?
Yes, I think, first off, when we did the last vote and it failed, I think a lot of people took that as a sign that, we shouldn't have done that. The way I took it, and I know a few other council members did, is we wanted to bring it to the citizens and allow them to vote on it. They did so, and they didn't like a 2% the 2% increase, or 0.02%, which makes sense. I probably wouldn't have voted for that as well. Actually, I didn't vote for that. But allowing the citizens to have that voice, I think more so than just the 7 of us that sit around the table, I think is important. And so this time, we've tried to come back and say, what can we do to really help the citizens and provide what they're looking for? One of those things is improved roads. There isn't funding in our budget to do that, especially the way that things are in our budget currently. So we need to do something. Raising taxes, for me, is the last thing that I want to do, and I think a lot of council members have mentioned that. That's not what we want to do, and I know that there are other ways for us to do things. And the decision for us to look at, if we raise the sales tax and then give back the car tab, what that'll do in effect is spread that tax burden throughout everyone that comes to Lynnwood that uses our roads, rather than just the citizens. Because when you pay the car tab, it's the citizen that lives in Lynnwood, not those that are visiting, and it makes it hard on our citizens to be the ones that are paying for the roads that everyone's using. In our city, we have a population of about 36,000 people, static, so just day in and day out. Every day we have 100,000 people or so that come through the city that are using our roads, and each of those vehicles does damage to the road, and to have people that come and visit also pitch in to pay for the roads that they use to do their shopping and work and all that is only a matter of fairness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's been said by some that Lynnwood is a city that is too reliant on sales tax for revenues. Is that something that you agree with, and would you support diversifying Lynnwood's source of revenues, and what might those be if that's your decision?
I would support that. I couldn't say offhand that I'd know how we would do that. Because in effect, the property taxes, a huge portion of that doesn't come to the city. It goes to the state and the county. And so if we decided not to rely so much on sales tax, we'd have to put the burden on those that have property and the property taxes. In an opposite view of that, we have so many businesses. Sales tax is a huge boon for us, and it's very helpful, and it's done our city well. The department that I work for at Costco is actually organizational change management. So one of the things that we're always looking at is change. What can we do to get people to accept change? What can we do to make sure that change and the impact from change does as little damage as possible and that people are accepting of it? And that's one of the things that I'm trying to bring to the council also and to the city is there are different ways for us to do things. And one of the reasons we have 7 city council members is because each one of us has different experiences that we can bring to it. And those ideas of what we can do differently rather than relying on sales tax solely or property tax, those are what's going to come from our discussions as a council. So I'd be very open to discussing those. I don't right now have an idea of what we can do aside from that, but I would be sure that citizens that came to visit us would, and a number of our council members would also have some of those ideas, and we could work together to make that come to fruition, to make a change that's better for our city.
The city's ethnic and immigrant populations continue to increase. What are the ways the city can involve these residents in government and provide services to them?
A huge way is having representation. And we often as a council try to encourage people to run for city council, to come to the meetings, to be a voice. We had a group come to one of our meetings, I think about 3 weeks ago, that spoke very little English. They were all Hispanic. They all spoke Spanish. They read their statements in English and explained to us, kind of their situation and what they were looking for from the city and from the city council. And we encourage citizens to do just that. That's the way that we know that citizens are out there and they have those needs and those wants and those desires. So we try to, as a council in general, help with having these programs and events that allow for diversity and for inclusion for all the people that are within our community. I think the Lynnwood Elementary School has 28 different languages that are spoken there. So, just from that, that our community is a very diverse community. And we have a lot of people that are coming that have needs and wants and desires that we may not be aware of. And so we try and encourage people to come and share with us those thoughts and ideas so that we can better represent them as a city council and as a city in general.
Well, last question is one that seems to always come up when you talk about Lynnwood issues, and that's the red light cameras. Do you think that issue's pretty much gone away, or is it still a concern to people, and does it need to be revisited?
It doesn't seem to be as big of an issue now as it has been. I think people know they're there and they understand it. Most of the angst and the worry I hear is from people that are outside of Lynnwood. Especially, I work in Issaquah, and so when I say something about me being from Lynnwood, that's one of the first things people say is the red light cameras, because they're not as used to them as the citizens are. And when they first started, I was not a big fan of them, and I'm still. I don't necessarily think that there's something that I would vote for per se. But I think that they've done some good for our city. People are used to them. They understand what they're there for, and that the city is really trying to make it safer. There's the issue of revenue for a city, and those bring in revenue. But as far as I know, and what the police chief has said, that, you know, the revenue isn't as high as it was previously because people understand now that the cameras are there and you need to stop at the red light. You can't just roll right through.
Okay.
So,
Okay, well, that's good to know. All right, well, now we have time for you to address the voters directly and tell them, you know, what your mission is in running for a second term and why they should vote for you. So, your turn.
I'd be happy to. I've loved being of service to the city of Lynnwood, to the citizens, to all of you. It's been my honor and pleasure to do so. I have 3 things that I really want to focus on, as I did in the first term. One of those is safety, making sure that our streets and our parks are safe for people to enjoy, the parks for kids to play in, make sure that the fire and the police both have adequate funding, the people they need. I want to make sure that we're using our tax monies correctly and that the government is held accountable. One of the big things that I wanted to do and I was able to do with the help of some of the other council members during my first term was to get our council meetings online so that when they're video recorded, we don't just make a CD, we make an actual video recording that we can post online and allow people the opportunity to go and visit the website, watch those, and be able to see what the council is really doing. And I plan to continue that activity and continue to make Lynnwood a safer and better place for all of us. And I would really appreciate your vote. So, thank you.
Very good. Well, thanks for coming on the program, and I wish you the best of luck. in
Thank
your
you very
campaign.
much.